We've completely redone the whole south side of our house here. It's been a really difficult area to work with, so we've cycled through all sorts of different types of landscaping. We used to have a giant prickly pear cactus here that did not survive very well. It was able to handle the reflected heat of the house, but with the lawn that we have here, it was a little too much moisture for it. So we've completely torn everything out, except for a few handful of plants, and redone it with Mediterranean-style landscaping. Most of the plants are from the Mediterranean basin, with a few exceptions, as well as a few California natives that we added into the mix. So coming over here to start the tour, this is on kind of the southwest side of the house. We have a little lavender cotton in there. That one's not the best example. It's still quite small. But we have a few larger ones over here that are just getting ready to bloom. They've already probably doubled in size, if not more, from when we planted them back in the fall. And I think they'll do a really good job of softening the edge of the path here. They can get to about 2 feet tall and 3 feet wide as they expand over time. So these two clumps might even merge into each other. And I think they'll look really good here. We also have a rock rose. This is a white one with some nice little purplish spots in the center. And this will get about 4 feet wide and tall and handles reflected heat really well. All of the plants in this whole section are adapted to pretty low water needs in the summer, so we're only going to be watering about once a week. And then some things like this white sage here, which is a California native, we actually don't have on the drip line at all, given how sensitive it is to overwatering. So we'll just hose it off in the summer every once in a while when it looks like it needs it. And other than that, it looks like it's establishing really well. We added a few larger plants like this Italian cypress, and there's a few more on the other side that I'll bring you around to. These get quite tall over time, I believe 60 feet or higher, but stay nice and columnar and compact. So I think that'll be a good punctuation mark here for the rest of the landscaping. We added in some bush germanders. We have one here and then another on the other side, kind of flanking the Italian cypress. And they have little purple flowers, purplish blue flowers on them, and they take to hedging really well. So we're going to be keeping them in nice little globe shapes, and they'll be a little bit more strict in their form here, and then we'll have some California native deer grasses to accentuate them with a little bit more wispy foliage. So we'll have a nice airy look in the back, and then the nice globes, as well as a nice Italian cypress here. Coming down further, we have a blank gap here where I think I'm going to be adding another rock rose, maybe a pink one since we already have two white ones already. And then we have a Tuscan blue rosemary. This is an upright form, as you can tell. And we'll keep this in a nice tight hedge. It's still pretty loose right now, but it was just planted in the fall. It's already grown a lot, but it's still on the smaller side, so it's not a true tight hedge just yet. Coming down here further, we have a coast rosemary that is not Mediterranean. It's actually from the temperate oceanic regions of southeastern Australia. But since it's close enough to the lawn, I think it'll have a little bit more moisture than the rest of the plants in this palette. And I think it should still perform well here. We have another lavender cotton next to a blue agave. It has really fun edges to it that almost glow. They're kind of yellowish with a red edge to them. And this was already here along with our camellia, and we decided that these were too pretty to rip out. I think the agave is more fitting with the palette of drought-wise plants that we have here that don't need much water in the summer. The camellia, on the other hand, definitely does prefer moister conditions, so we're hoping the shade of this tree that we have in the lawn will be enough to retain some moisture. And then it has, gosh, probably almost close to the same amount of drip emitters as the rest of the plants in this whole area. Moving down further, we have some Mediterranean spurge that gets really fun lime green flowers on it, and the foliage is kind of a silvery green. And these get pretty large over time. We already have some that are about 4 feet tall and wide, so they'll help fill in this area along with bear's breeches. I believe these are Acanthus mollis, and quick PSA on these, they do spread quite aggressively, and once you get them in an area, they are pretty difficult to get rid of. They're pretty deep rooted, and if you cut up their roots at all when you're removing them, each of those essentially just turn into new plants. So once you have them in an area, they pretty much like to stay there unless you put in a lot of work to remove them. But I think they'll work really well here. It's a nice lush look to kind of transition into the rest of the landscaping that we have around the patio that is not Mediterranean or as drought adapted. So I think it provides a good transition. And they do also get a little bit of extra water from the lawn here, as well as they're on drip emitters too. So I think they'll do really well here and hopefully not be summer deciduous like some of the ones that we have in the rest of the backyard are that are not on irrigation. They can be evergreen in more temperate and moderate climates where it's a little bit moister. So I'm hoping with the supplemental irrigation they'll remain evergreen here for us. Coming around here we have a mature European fan palm, and that has been here for quite some time, but we decided to redo all of the landscaping around it. It was getting a little bit too much water, not just from the lawn, but also the drip irrigation in this planter. So we removed all of the drip irrigation, and now the rest of these plants are completely on their own. So we either have ones on this far side away from the lawn overspray that are adapted to completely dry summer conditions. So we have some Idaho Fescue, which is notoriously drought tolerant, some golden yarrow, red buckwheat, a couple more lavender cottons, and then another bush germander. As you're getting closer to this side, we do get a little bit of lawn overspray. So the palette of grasses changes a little bit as you get closer to the lawn. All of these grasses are California native. So in addition to the Idaho Fescue that we have over there that's a little bit more drought tolerant, we have a California Fescue here that's only a couple feet from the lawn, so it should be able to tap into some of the residual moisture nearby. Those get to about 3 feet tall and wide, so we gave it a little bit more room. Then we have some Dune sedge here that is from the more coastal areas of California, but it spreads underground through runners. So I'm hoping over time it fills in this whole border along the lawn and provides a nice transition to the rest of the planter. Then we have some tufted hairgrass that can get decently tall, probably about 3.5 feet tall when it's flowering. And it also likes a little bit wetter conditions. So we added that just right on the edge of the lawn here. And we have kind of an alternating pattern of tufted hairgrass and dune sedge coming along here. The dune sedge will fill in over time, whereas the tufted hairgrass will stay in a more discrete bunch. We have another California fescue that I'm hoping is not too far from the lawn overspray, since this will be a very hot and exposed area come summer. Coming down here further, we have a few western fescue, which I'm hoping will do all right here. They prefer almost more of a forest habitat, so I put them on the east side of this fan palm and close to underneath it so that they can have a little bit of the shade to buffer the summer heat and direct sun. And they also get a little bit of overspray from the lawn, so I'm hoping that'll be enough for them to stay green and thrive here. Thankfully, underneath this DG ground cover that we have, there is a clay layer that will definitely retain some more moisture. So I'm hoping they can tap into that, which isn't too deep, and that'll be enough for them to have additional moisture throughout the summer. Around to this side, we just have one more California fescue on the corner. And then more lavender cotton here, as well as red buckwheat. This is our only buckwheat that's still surviving and seemingly thriving for now. The other one that we had in here only has a few green leaves left and seems to be completely dead, if not heading that way. We had another one do the same thing. Their roots can be very sensitive to transplanting, and some of them we put in the spring as well instead of in the fall. And the ones we planted in the fall did much better at establishing in different areas of our yard, so that was probably the main culprit for it. It's in decently deep DG there since we made a slight mound, but that shouldn't have been the problem since they prefer very lean soils without much organic material. So I'm thinking it was just transplant shock that was likely the problem for that one. Coming across to the southeast side of our house, we have a similar palette of Mediterranean plants, but a few new additions as well. Over here on top of this rock wall, we have a trailing rosemary that is doing really well. We planted it in the fall and it seems to be establishing nicely. Over time, it will spread across this whole area and down this rock wall, and I think it'll look really nice here. We have a few California poppies in the mix, as well as daffodils that are past their prime and no longer blooming, but we'll be cutting those back once their foliage starts to die. And we'll also be removing the poppies once they start to get past their prime. Coming up these stairs, I really like how the two Italian cypress frame the path on either side, which is why instead of planting them closer to the house, this one is out actually closer to the path, but I think it'll look really nice as the trees mature. A lot of different plants we planted in different clusters of usually at least 3, sometimes more. So down over here we have another bush germander, a deer grass, which is native to California, and then a foxtail agave, which is actually not Mediterranean adapted. It's from subtropical regions in Mexico. So that might be the riskiest plant we have here, other than the Camelias that we decided to keep. I'm hoping it will survive our cold spells as well as our summer heat. It has a little bit of sun damage because I think we took it out of the greenhouse too fast and put it in direct sun too quickly. But its new leaves are looking nice, so hopefully it survives and does well here. Then we have 2 different olive trees in here. This one is pruned into more of a single trunk, so it's going largely straight up, but it is starting to branch out a lot more, which is nice. And then down a little bit further, we have a multi-trunked olive that's spreading out a little bit more. As I was saying, with plants being arranged in clusters, we have another one right here. This is the Italian cypress, and then we have another rock rose with the same white flowers with little spots on each petal, and then another Tuscan blue rosemary over here. This one has taken off a lot and is growing really nicely. We probably need to come in here and prune it sooner than later to make sure it stays bushy. And then back here we have another cluster of 3 plants, 2 more bush germanders that are doing really well, and then this is a bay laurel. We pruned it a little while ago and it's already sending out a lot of new growth, which is good to see. Bay laurel are more of a tree, but they can be hedged really well. So we're going to keep it maybe about 6 feet high and cylindrical and hedge it nicely, and it should do well with that. Otherwise, it would be 40 feet or higher and definitely more of a tree than a shrub, but so far it's doing really well. The reason why we wanted to add something a little bit taller here, like a bay laurel, is because we don't have many tall things along the back of the house, and we thought it would look really good to have a little bit more height in between these 2 windows, as well as to soften the edge going from this planter wall along our patio with the rest of this area. So I think the bay laurel will do a really good job of that. And then the bush germanders kind of just help transition it into the rest of the space. And the lavender over here with the coast rosemary just help transition the whole area into the olives and the rest of the planter. We have another camellia back here that is the same as the one on the other side. Definitely not adapted to the rest of the palette of plants that we're using here, but we're hoping it survives for now because we do like the look of it, even though it isn't accustomed to the conditions that we'll be using for the rest of the plants. But it blooms in winter, which is really nice when a lot of the other plants are either dormant or not flowering, so it provides a little bit of visual interest during that time. And then coming over here, we have a few more poppies, and then this one I'm really excited about. It is a Matilija poppy, or Coulter's poppy. It was planted from a 1-gallon pot and probably about a foot tall, if that, and it is exploded. It's probably up to 4 feet tall now, and we're getting some little buds that'll eventually turn into flowers. The flowers end up being about 7 inches across, which is impressive. One of the larger flowers that we have in California. And similar to the sage, this one doesn't really like any supplemental water at all once established. So I think we've done a decent job of getting it established here. We made a slight raised area with DG to make sure it has nice sharp drainage, and then have just been hand watering it occasionally since we've been having such a wet winter and otherwise don't really need to. And it is completely taken off. And similar disclaimer for this as we had with the bear's breeches, it does spread rhizomatically underground. So over time it can form a huge thatch of Matilija poppy. But thankfully, if you have stray shoots popping up where you don't want them, supposedly pulling them is all you need to control its width over time. So hopefully it'll just fill in the space here really well, and we'll be able to control it from going too much further than that. Over time, it can get to about 7 to 10 feet tall, which is impressive. So it might encroach a little bit on these windows, but I don't think it'll fully block them by any means. Coming down here, we have a few gardenias. This one is just about to bloom, and this one is as well. Also looks like it has some spent blooms from a little bit earlier in the season. These were already here, and we liked them too much to rip them out, even though similar to the camellia, they're used to much wetter conditions in East Asia. So while they aren't perfectly adapted to the rest of the plants that we have over here, we're hoping that they can still survive. This one is right on the edge of the lawn, so it gets a little bit of extra moisture from that. And then this one actually blocks a sprinkler that would otherwise be spraying the Matilija poppy, so serves two functions in one. And then lastly over here, this area is definitely still a work in progress. We haven't added any DG top dressing yet, but we have a few deer grasses around this European fan palm that we transplanted over the winter. This one popped up in our yard from another European fan palm that we had, so we dug it up and decided to move it over here since it was already so large and able to hold a decent amount of space compared to the smaller ones that you buy at the nursery. And eventually we'll be adding more plants around the east side of this area and finishing off the whole planter. This whole section was only planted last year except for the olive trees that we have and the few assortment of plants that we decided to keep. So I think it's looking really good for only being less than a year in and the first spring so far. I'm really excited to see how it looks in summer and the years later when the Italian cypress start to fill in and get even taller.